Hi, my name's Lindsay Elliott from Lindsay Elliott Coaching, and I'm back today with video 4, so part 4 in a video series called Unlocking More Time and Ease in Your Life. And just to do a quick recap, so this video series is really about looking at what we can take off of our mental to-do list. So all of those things that we believe that we have to manage or control in our lives, and how can we see these with a new and fresh perspective so that we can have more headspace, more time and more energy. So in video 1, we looked at not having to manage our thoughts and emotions. In video 2, we looked at saying no and setting boundaries. And in video 3, we looked at taking worrying about other people or trying to fix other people off of our to-do list. So I will link all of those videos in the description box below. But this video is the final video, and for me is probably the most important video in terms of being able to really trust that you don't have to listen to your mind. Okay, so I've called it trusting your inner compass. So it's going to be looking at, okay, maybe we can turn our attention away from the busyness of the mind, from the toing and froing that goes on in the mind, from the addiction to the mind, and look at what other part of us, what other part of life can we trust that's really just living us, actually doing all of the heavy lifting for us. Because when it looks like we have to do it all ourselves, we are in charge, particularly when it looks like our mind is in charge, it creates all kinds of trouble for us, and it ends up being really busy and noisy in our heads, and we feel exhausted. And that's really the whole point of this series, is to help us to feel calmer, more peaceful, more ease, and less frenetic in our minds. So we're going to look at what we can trust beyond the mind and the intellect, or what's guiding us beyond the mind and the intellect. So what what usually happens is that, say we've got a decision to make about something, that we innocently will just go up into our heads and we'll have a good think about it, and our mind, which is amazing at doing this, will look at the pros and cons, it will look at the for and against, it will have an argument with itself, usually about, well, this choice looks like it's better, this decision looks like it's better, or no, actually, but what about this? We could look at it this way, or this could be better for the family but not great for me, or this might be good for X person but not great for me, or this might be better for me but not great for X person. So it can end up, usually in any decision, in a tussle with itself. It innocently tends to overthink. And it might go around asking other people, what do you think? Do you think I should accept this job? Do you think I should say yes to getting married? Do you think I should buy this house? And look, and there's no criticism here, because my mind does it too. I do this too. But when we are in that kind of like, I need to make a decision, if it's a big decision or even a small decision, what do I want for lunch? Which can be a really complicated decision for some people. In certain situations, or shall I buy this house, or shall I end my marriage, or shall I go away travelling? If it's a big decision, a small decision, what content shall I write for my business? It doesn't matter what it is. If we look up into our intellect, inevitably, unless it's a very clear decision within our minds, and that's the key really, within our minds, if our mind decides it's a clear decision, we're going to get this tussle of pros and cons, good, bad, right, wrong, can I get it right, can I get it wrong? And your mind's also going to talk to you about how there's a right decision here and a wrong decision here, and how if you make the wrong decision, that's really going to affect the future, and it's all going to be doom and gloom, and it's going to tend to catastrophize. So this is really what we want to get out of, because this is what I see in some people that I work with, where they can innocently get so caught up in trying to make a decision, and they're constantly looking back up into the intellect, back up into the mind, which is creating the issue in the first place, for the solution. So what can we do if we're not going to look into our mind? And I'm not saying that the intellect is a bad thing, or the mind is a bad thing, 100% not. It's an amazing gift, okay? And our intellect is an amazing gift, but only really when we use it in the right way, or in a way that's beneficial to us. And with decision making and with guiding our life, it maybe sometimes has some useful input, may pull out some good pros, some good cons, some things we hadn't thought of. But generally, there's a deeper sense within us, so that we already can tap into about what we want to do. So Michael Neal, who's a coach who I love in this understanding, talks about it in that we always have an internal yes or an internal no. And until we don't have an internal yes or an internal no, we're in I don't know. And that's okay. Because now obviously for our mind, for our intellect, it hates I don't know. It wants to make a decision yesterday, doesn't like uncertainty, because our minds are all about predicting the future and trying to keep us safe. And in a space of I don't know is torture to our mind. But to our inner being, our essence, our life force, whatever you want to call it, I don't know is an amazing place. It's a completely peaceful place. It's totally okay to be in I don't know until that internal yes or that internal no arises. And we all have it. So if you've got a decision to make, or a big decision or a small decision, sometimes it can be helpful just to get quiet and to try to tune into, and it might arise quite quickly to the surface. You might already know it, but sometimes we might need to just be in that waiting and just tune into, okay, is this a yes or is this a no? And just see if you can feel into that. Now, we'll need to kind of slightly look away from the mind, which is going to be talking in pros and cons, good, bad, right, wrong, bad decision, good decision. But certainly we can know that we can tap into that internal yes, that internal no, or that internal I don't know yet, but you will know at some point a decision will be made 100%. And really, I think when we are looking, I think everybody's wisdom or intuition, or however you want to frame it, your life force, it feels really different for everybody. So I think how my wisdom might talk to me might be different to how your wisdom talks to you, or your intuition talks to you. But the more that we can practice with just trying to gently turn our attention away from the mind, looking for the internal yes, no, don't know, and then waiting to see, the more that we can do that, I think we get a sense of what our own wisdom, our own intuition, our own internal knowing feels like. Now, I'll describe what mine feels like in case it's helpful for you, but you'll have your system will have its own way of speaking to you. So for me, and I think this is true for a lot of people, I don't think how my wisdom talks to me is like I'm the only human on earth that it talks to me like this. But generally it comes with just this kind of like settled knowing. It's just a knowing, yes, this is the right decision. Yes, this is what I want to do. And if I tune into that internal yes, internal no, I often get, it just feels very peaceful. There's not a lot of kind of chatter about it. It's just like a, yeah, I know that's what I want to do. And if it's an I don't know situation, what I now do is I kind of mentally or metaphorically put the decision on what I call the back burner of my mind, and I just let it sit there. And I just let it be there, and I let my mind have a chat about it, and I let my mind get a bit confused, and then I try to turn my attention away from it, which will happen because our minds can't stay focused on something, all of the time. And then when I find what happens a lot, again, it's not a hard and fast rule, it's not a way to do it, I'm just explaining an example so that hopefully it's helpful for you, is that often that kind of like that decision, that knowing will drop in at a time when I'm not thinking about it. The solution to the problem, the decision that needs to be made will just kind of drop in with, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I need to do. Yeah, I want to say yes to that. Yes, no, I do want to do that. Or no, I don't want to do that. But when I'm not thinking about it. And that's just a couple of ways that I kind of know, in inverted commas, that it's my intuition or my wisdom that's guiding me. Now, I personally think that our wisdom and our intuition is guiding us all of the time. And that what happens is a mind will just take ownership for a decision, but that's maybe a topic for another video. but in case, because some people do get a bit confused about how can I know it's my intuition and not my mind talking to me, and I don't know that we even need to make that differentiation. I don't know that we ever really need to actually know that, whether it is our mind or our intuition or wisdom. But I think, as I said, for me, it's a more of a settled feeling, and certainly if I put something on the back burner and I'm waiting for a decision, it tends to drop in when I'm not thinking about it. And that's when I kind of like, okay, I just know. Now, I think we all have this experience within us. So I'm just going to give a few examples. So, for example, a lot of people will talk about walking into a property that maybe they want to rent or they want to buy, and they have an immediate, yeah, I can live here, or no, I can't live here. Some people also say in relationships, they just get a feeling of, yeah, I could spend the rest of my life with this person. No, I definitely know they're not for me. And what also tends to happen in those situations is we have that immediate internal yes, internal no that we know and we can trust, but then our mind still wants to have a good think about it, and often we will just innocently go into that, and that's okay to do that. So for example, with buying a house, you kind of have an internal yes or an internal no, but then you may sit down and weigh up the pros and cons. Even though you know that you really just want to buy the house, you might look at where the location is and the price, you've got to do all that practical stuff. But the decision is already made, really. It's only really kind of settling the mind to say, yeah, the pros and cons, like the pros definitely outweigh the cons. And sometimes you've probably got this experience in your own life. Sometimes we say yes to things when it doesn't look like the right thing to do. It doesn't look like it's the most sensible option, but we just know that we want to do it. And we can totally trust that feeling. We can totally trust that sense of knowing. So for example, when I lived in Australia for 4 years, and when my husband had been offered a job and said, what do you think, shall we go? I immediately knew there was an internal yes in me, but I spent 3 weeks thinking about it. I spent 3 weeks weighing it up, chewing. I didn't have this understanding, but then I spent 3 weeks thinking about it, 3 weeks chewing it over, talking to everybody about it. Shall I do it? Shall I not? This is the pros, this is the cons. When I'd already made the decision, I already knew that I was going to say yes, but it felt, because I think this is how it kind of feels in our society. It feels like we have to think about something in order to carefully consider it. Now, I'm not saying that don't do that. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes we can expend a lot of time and energy in thinking about those decisions that we already know the answer to. Because the decision isn't coming from the mind. The decision is coming from the much deeper, greater, knowing part of ourselves that is always connected to the whole and is connected and is the life force, the life energy. So, and really, I think this is the biggest point that I want to make in this video, is just to reorientate you, or to remind you that, and you will have heard this, said 1,000 times probably, but that life is mysterious. It's amazing that there is a solar system with planets hanging in space, and that all of it has conspired over I love how Michael Singer, spiritual teacher, talks about it, has conspired over 13.8 billion years for this life to be happening on this planet. Like, there is life on this planet in a way that there is, on, as far as we know, on no other planet. And it's spinning on its axis, and life is constantly flowing, and nature is happening, and trees are changing, and animals are living, and humans are living. And that amazing, like, it's mind-blowing. Life is mind-blowing. And in that same energy that is spinning the solar system and growing cells into babies, and is totally in us too. We are that energy. That same amazing, unfathomable intelligence of life is us. We absolutely have that. And then we also have, as humans, that other species we think don't have, in the same way, a computer in our heads, a mind that talks about it and wants to take ownership of it and likes to weigh up the pros and the cons. But what I really want you to feel into is that same immense energy is absolutely it's not even running your life, it is life, it is you, it is me, it is all of us. And if that energy has enough potential and intelligence within it to create a solar system and millions of multiverses, and to hang a planet in space that has allowed me to be sitting here talking to you on an iPhone with the internet, if all of that comes out of that, we can trust it to make decisions for us. And I think this is the last bit that I want to say, which our minds will hate. So your mind's going to hate this possibly. Is that what if, given that this amazing, intelligent energy is us, it's not even running through us, it just is us. I don't really know how else to say it more strongly. If that is our life and it's totally running and guiding and creating our life, it is life, what if there are no wrong decisions? What if when you've got a problem to solve or a decision to make, you cannot get it wrong? Because as far as we know, like we don't know if we can have like sliding door moments where there's this option and my life would have turned out this way, and this option and my life would have turned out that way. All that we can know is the decision, what is happening, or what is happening is supposed to be happening. And I don't even mean that in a kind of like slushy, kind of, not slushy, but you know, kind of really kind of esoteric spiritual way, even though I think it has that meaning. Like in a really practical way. If it's meant to be happening, it's meant to be happening. If it's happening, it's because it's meant to be happening. And because that's what life is creating, that's the flow of life, that's what is coming up in this moment. This decision has been made. So our mind absolutely will look at a decision and say, no, wrong decision, right decision, you made the wrong decision there. But what if we can trust that, no, if that was the decision that was made in life, then it is the right decision for whatever reason. And we can try to look for the meaning for it if we want to. We can try to say, oh yeah, well actually I learned that from that experience, so that's why it turned out that way. Maybe, yeah. But just to make it really simple, in any decision, it's the right decision because it's what happened. So just to give you a quick example. So for example, I have a divorce in my history, and I could easily say, well, it was the wrong decision to get married because the marriage didn't last. Now, and I could also say that, you know, I learned a huge amount from that process. I could make up some really positive things about that experience in hindsight. But the way really I look at it is, well, that's what happened. I was asked to be married, I said yes, then a divorce happened, then some healing happened, then some change of perspective happened about it, and it's all just what is meant to be happening. You know, I had an enforced year out at uni, where I wasn't supposed to have a year out before I started university, and that meant that I met my ex-husband and also now my current husband, and I can look and say, well, if I hadn't have had that year out, my life might have been totally different, in a good way, a bad way, who knows. But that's what has happened, that's what's happened in my life, that's what's meant to be happening. Now I know when challenging things are happening, and to a human mind that is torture. It's just like, no, I don't want this. This isn't what's supposed to be happening. This can't be right. And I totally understand that. I've been through those experiences myself. And it's okay when you're in that, if you're in the fighting and the resistance and you don't want to acknowledge that, you know, maybe this is just what's supposed to be happening, because that's totally human and it's okay. But I just want you to maybe reflect on, well, maybe that the inner knowing knows more than the mind. I think that's really the point of this video. We can take so much off of our to-do list if we can just know that life is going to guide us and prompt us to exactly what we need. Life is just going to flow through us as it is supposed to. And there's so much less for us to do than we think. So I hope that this has been helpful. Please do like the video and share it if you have found it helpful. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and I really appreciate you if you have watched this video, and indeed if you've watched the entire series. And yeah, just thank you so much for being here. If you've got any questions, please do contact me. I would love to hear from you. Thanks then. Bye.